Okay, I'm good to go.
So today is March 12th, um, 2024. We're on meeting 23. Zane, go ahead with the discussion on config options for plugins.
Yes, using the config options for plugins. So if we open up the repository here and go over to the V2 branch, and I'll link that here in the channel. If we look at this V2 branch here, there's an RFC in there for the config options and the info endpoint. And I was having a thought the other day about the plugins that we've been talking about for a while and how they would work. And I was thinking that maybe this could provide a way to implement a good portion of those plugins on a per agent basis. Like you add it to the config options that go into the additional input. And so let's say you needed a authentication token or something like that passed into your agent so that you can use it for whatever you're trying to do, or you need a payment token or all the other use cases that we've talked about with plugins. I think that this could be used as a replacement for other methods. And if so, then it's good that it does that. So I was wondering if it would work that way, if you think that it would work that way, and if it's possible to do that. And if we should, if it is possible to do that, we should make an example, several example agents that extend using the config options and for different purposes like authorization or other plugin use cases.
I think that makes sense. The only question that I have is that if the agent is very complicated and it wants to use multiple plugins, the config option only with the config option solution might get like really convoluted with everything added together.
Yeah, that's definitely
So
possible. It could
so
end up
the
being a huge object with a whole bunch of settings.
Yeah, but like the initial suggestion that some people were talking about was a kind of node like package JSON similar, like it's just a string, like a one string indicating it's this schema, and the schema is defined elsewhere that we pull in. That feels like a better approach
Interesting.
for plugins.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. That is maybe the same that we used to work in Java for when we use Maven. It is the same. If
Where
you
you
want to have your own plugin, you put it on a config file, like a JSON file
right.
or an XML.
I guess the thing is though, the difference between the agent protocol and something like Maven or Node package.json type of thing is that these plugins would be more on the SDK level. And so I guess how does it affect the schema, right? Because if we're talking about linking to a package.json for an SDK to use to implement for the agent, then how does it work on the schema itself? Like, because for instance, with that more complex example, it's more just about trying to automate the flow, right? If you require a certain thing in a certain context, then it needs to be described, and then an agent needs to be able
Yeah.
to pick that up and understand it. And that's why I was thinking the config options would work, because you could string multiple together, like if you had multiple ways to authenticate, then you could have one config option that specifies which type of authentication you're using, and then another that for that type of authentication that takes that type of input. And then, on a simple level, it's just passing to the agent, and then it's the agent's SDK or the agent itself that handles the rest of it. So the plugin code could be implemented on an SDK basis like that with a package.json type of thing. But then that plugin is going to need to either change the config options or extend the schema in some way. Now we could just create a way to extend the schema in this, but I'm not sure. That's why I wanted to bring it
No,
up.
I think I like the idea of having personally I like the idea of having something that's like as simple as just one single line to trigger a code change for config options, perhaps, right? And then
Right.
perhaps like the code gen will be generated as like a config option implementation that essentially extends the schema, essentially makes the schema into something that's more complicated. That could be a solution, or it could rewrite the entire. It could affect the schema of the schema, just the schema, and not the config option, because the config option right now is just the schema for the additional input, or
Right.
yeah, the schema for what can be specified in additional input. So yeah, we can do. I think like in terms of like the developer experience, I think just like a single line of like I need to import authentication from Oracle, and that's like Oracle dash authentication. That's a single line. Adding it in your like adding it in your system, and that triggers an SDK and schema like code gen, right? Generating code that's like it's kind of like like package JSON with similar to like the React framework, right? Like you add things in package JSON dependencies, and you have a node module folder that has like all of these dependencies pulled in, and you can reference them in the main code base. So I really like this kind of analogy of like there's code gen. In this case, it maybe not like pulling in the whole thing from a separate, like the initial vision of plugins is that we're gonna have separate organizations gonna have their own determination on how the protocol is gonna look. And so when people pull in the other protocols, it would be it's their code base. So maybe instead of doing that modality, we can take their code base and do code gen. Does that make sense?
I think it makes
A little
sense.
bit.
Yeah.
I'm just like describing that for the developer experience, it helps to just do a one single
Yeah.
line of like I need a plugin ABCD, and ABCD are just one single line string to help people determine that these are
Right.
yeah, like what
From
people
the
want to
from
pull
the
in, rather than
developers
having
from the
to
developer's perspective, it should be a one single
yes,
line with like a
yeah,
tool of some kind. But from the under the hood perspective, we would be taking the schema, merging them, and then building it from CodeGen based on that merge of the schema, right? So that any objects, like it would overwrite and merge on top of the existing schema, and we'd be able to see that on an agent protocol perspective of what those changes to the schema are, so that it
yeah,
can
maybe
be
there is like exactly. So there is like a runtime of like building the schema, right? Like so we have the root vanilla schema, and then we have all the existing plugins that people have, and then there's a build stage of like getting back all the like consolidated schema that has all
interesting.
the plugins.
Interesting.
I think it would be a good idea to have like a uh, basic structure and some kind of way to extend it if you want to do something more not too general but more uh,
Niche.
personalized for you or for your needs.
Yeah.
You can just extend it And for the protocol side of it, it will be the simple one, but you
So
have a way to
you're
extend it.
saying to like lock down specific way, like task steps and artifacts, we could lock those down and then extend on top of them, but not allow them to be overridden necessarily. So that like tools, for instance, would be difficult, I think, to develop if the schema can be totally overwritten because it's kind of just like passing an entirely different schema. So then having some elements that are 100% required would probably be necessary in that case, right?
Yeah, yeah, because if if we want like a solution that fits all, I think it wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be useful,
Right.
uh, have a basic one, and if your problem is it, it is too complex and you need to extend it, you can do it, but always keep the protocol like simple.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Sasha?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much all I had on that. Uh, yeah, because I talked about the authorization example, and yeah, the question is that going to cut it? And it sounds like no, it's not going to cut it. We need a way to extend more than just the config options, and the config options by themselves, if we did it that way, would become huge and unmanageable. Well, maybe an AI could
Yeah.
manage it, but it would still be a lot.
To be fair, I feel like even though I said code gen, I don't mean that in a way that's like Gen AI like code gen. I
Yeah,
mean
you
kind of
mean
like
open
more
API code
static
gen.
approach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about, yeah. We take the schema that's there, and then a plugin would be something that you could just simply add, and there'd be a code gen element to the SDK that would take that schema change and generate a new SDK based on those schema changes, and then so it's just up to us on what parts of the schema are required to stay the same for interoperability, and what parts of the schema can be changed, and we should uh, make sure to specify those whenever we get towards the plugin stage, which ones are 100% required and which ones shouldn't be, so that developers of tools and developers of agents can build around that. Like for instance, one thing we were talking about the other day was on the steps, there's a status, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
status has an enum that is, let me look at it again real quick. Was it in the original one? No, let me go look at the schema. I think the status is like completed status. Created, running, and completed. And Juan was talking about, well, what happens if it fails? Um, and that's something that we don't have right now, as a failure condition in there. So that could be, you know, it wouldn't be the best plugin. It's something that actually should just probably be part of the agent protocol. But as an example, if we were to extend it, that's the kind of thing that we would want the ability to do. There should be a plugin that lets you change that status, or maybe even change the status of it to reference something else instead of being an enum with a string, or whatever that looks like. Different small things like that are useful, I guess. But anyway,
Yeah. For the statuses, I'm curious to see how it's being used. Um, in my case, I briefly played around the llama index abstraction, taking that they use agent protocol as an inspiration.
hmm,
And they themselves are not using the status field.
right, right.
So I'm just curious to learn and hear how other people are using it. Because
That would be a good idea to ask to the AutoGPT guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, when Marwan initially worked on the agent protocol, he was he and I were having some debates around. He believes that a step should be very small and very like executable. So when you create a step, when you're done with that call, and then the agent returns, the step should be already finished executing. So I gave him the feedback that create step should really just be execute step, and he agrees. And then we were also debating whether or not the status field is necessary. He thinks that the status field is not necessary. Like a task, a step is either not done or done. There's no like other statuses, right? And so before, yeah.
That was an issue because one of the issues with that is when we were talking about it, we were talking about whether or not a step should be almost instantly completed and returned, or if it should be pulled until it's done. Because if it takes longer than a certain amount of time, then it probably needs to be pulled instead of returned, because otherwise you'll time out on your request window for whatever your stuff is. I know, like even pushing like the basic request stuff for JavaScript, I think it's like 15 minutes is the max. So if your agent
the
takes longer,
debate between Moan and I were that Moan thinks that we should not support long running steps, and whereas for me, I think we should try to support all possible use cases. So that's kind of the debate.
because
Moan thinks that
just
we should be
even if you
serving
broke
a
it
small
down,
audience.
even if you broke it down to its smallest component, it could still take some time. Like I would want to be able to run an agent on a Raspberry Pi that's using the CPU on the Raspberry Pi to run an LLM, you know. And if I do that, I know it's going to take some time. You know what I mean? So
but Moan's case is that we just won't support that. If your step takes longer than that, we just won't support that. And he thinks it's fine that we don't support.
No,
and I appreciate he's like he has a very principled approach, so I appreciate his perspective.
Yeah.
But I think we should try to support as many use cases as possible. At least make this protocol more kind of usable.
Ideally, the protocol would be able to be used in future IoT AI applications and business building automation and things like that that are more that could be slow, or could be of a totally different infrastructure than what we've been working with AI, which is mainly MacBooks and RTX GPUs on servers. So as time goes on, being able to work for those smaller ones, I think makes the most sense. But I could be wrong.
So that's it, right?
Yeah, that's it on that one for the config options thing. I'm open to more discussion on that in the future as well.
Okay. So next, I want to kind of discuss some of the new project suggestions. So for the next 3 months, we're gonna be focused on trying to find or create new projects. And I shared this criteria document here. That's basically a guide to like for other organizations if they have like popular open source libraries. Here is how they can contribute, projects to us. And also, we are potentially discussing with HumanLoop on this prompt file schema. And so we had some meetings with them. So I'm really just looking for a project lead to lead this project. There's some potential collaboration with Microsoft here. And so, so I'll post in the group and see if people are interested. That's all I have right now.
You have any info on the Microsoft project?
So
that, that you can share right now, or you will be put.
The HumanLoop has this prompt file format, and then Microsoft is also working on something like that. So the effort would be more around kind of communicating with them and figuring out like a minimum viable set of features that satisfies for both cases. And it's the work there is very similar to the work that we've been doing on Agent Protocol, which is create a plugin system so that other people can use it, has more and more people use it. So I'm really looking for someone to take the lead on that. So it's basically collaborating with two organizations, HumanLoop and Microsoft.
Okay, because the one project I know from Microsoft is the one that I told you saying last time, the semantics one, that I thought it was like a way to interconnect agents, but I don't know if it is this one.
Can you do you have a link that you can share?
Yeah, I put it last time here. Let me get it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It is called semantics kernel. Let me put it again on the chat. I'm not sure if this is one, but sorry, my bad. Let me put it again. Okay, I'm gonna reply to the message that is on the chat. Is this one? This one. There you go.
So prop file really is just like a file format for specifying prompts and related model parameters. I feel like semantic kernel is more a SDK to use some of the popular large language models. So I think it's different, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, looking forward for it. I if I can help, I can. Well, we can see how we can contribute to it.
Yeah, well, I'll post in the general chats to see if people are interested in taking this up as well.
Great.
Cool. Anything else, Zane?
Nothing for me.
Okay, great.
That's it for me too.
Okay.
Sorry, I I forgot. Regarding what we spoke, Sasha, last time about the Latin American chapter. How do you think we should be beginning working with it? You know, like, do we do the changes on the website first, or how can we what are the steps you guys think we should be doing in order to begin building the Latin American chapter?
Yeah, so you can kind of, so the way that, I don't know if you were there for when we have a Bulgarian chapter lead, and he's been kind of running events kind of semi-independently. And so I think what you could do is, if you want, you can start creating events and getting people to meet up. And we can also create a channel for you for Latin America as well. You know, depending on how many AI engineers you have in your city, you can either do it in person or online as well. So I think yeah, let me know like what kind of support you need. But I like the top level thing is that I want to be just in general supportive of people taking AI Engineer Foundation and spreading in other areas of the world.
Okay, great. So if I need images, logos, and that stuff, I can email you or write you a message in order to get them.
Pretty easy. Just let me know.
Okay. Great. That's it for me.
Okay. Well, awesome. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everyone.
You too.
You too,
Thanks.
Sasha.
Okay,
Bye,
bye.
Zane.
Bye bye.
Have a nice day. Bye, guys. Bye bye.
You too.